And yeah, a very warm welcome to this session, which is an introduction to Create Sheffield. I hope very much that by the end of the session, you will know what Create Sheffield is, who it is, and what we can do for you, and how perhaps we can work together in the future. Oh, now it's decided it doesn't want to let me use my cursor. Sorry, just a minute. Right, so this is the first session of our 3-week Why Creativity Matters Now conversations. And the reason why we've called them conversations is because literally we want them to be conversations. This one of all of them actually is probably the least conversationy, but we're really interested in your thoughts, your feelings, your feedback, because this is part of a consultation for us. It's a conversation that we need to have about arts and cultural education in Sheffield. This is also the first event, as I understand it, of Learn Sheffield's Autumn Festival, and we're really grateful to them for hosting us. We're partners with Learn Sheffield. It's something that is a really important relationship for us, and again, I'll talk a little bit about that in the presentation. So, Create Sheffield is a cultural education partnership. Sheffield has just one cultural education partnership. They happen all the way around England, and they got kick-started by the Arts Council in 2016. So what is a cultural education partnership, I hear you say? Over the years that I've been describing this, more and more I end up using the same analogy, which I'd really like to find an alternative, but the analogy is that it's a little bit like a dating agency for arts and culture for young people. So where there is an arts and cultural offer for young people and some young people, we try and connect up the two. Often that isn't directly with the young people. Often it's through a gatekeeper. That might be schools, or it might be the youth and community sector, it might be parents and carers. But our aim is to try and make sure that as many young people as possible have access to arts and culture. Oh, sorry, it's not allowing me to use my arrow. Here we go. So we're a charitable organisation, and we're set up to take the young people of Sheffield on a journey into arts, culture and heritage. So I am the programme manager for Create Sheffield. I work 3 days a week. My colleague Dana is here today. Dana is the administrator, and she runs all the comms and all the social media accounts and the website. She also works 3 days a week for Create Sheffield, and she works 2 days a week for Learn Sheffield. My other colleague is here today, Jenny Coates, who some of you will know as head teacher from Beck School. Jenny, alongside 2 of her colleagues from Beck School, Amy Willoughby and Becky Stroud, in August became our freelance creative education producers, and they have helped us shape this event and festival for schools. This series of conversations around why creativity matters now. We have other freelancers, but we're a tiny weeny team, and it's important to make that point because Create Sheffield isn't an organisation that's going to come in and effectively work with 87,000 children just like that. Create Sheffield is an organisation that wants to pull together as many different people as possible from across the city to help us work together in a movement to change the shape and face of arts and culture in Sheffield. We have a board of trustees, and we also have our partners, but I'll say a bit more about them later. So Create Sheffield took a little while to emerge as a partnership, and then in 2019 it became a company. And the first job we were going to do as soon as we became a company was to set our website up, and then as soon as our website was set up, we were going to go and talk to every single school in Sheffield individually. And then something called COVID hit, which I imagine all of you know about. So we've ended up in this very weird situation where we've had 20 months. We've been around for 20 months while the pandemic has been going on, and we've not really been able to engage with schools. And so this opportunity is the first time that we've really had to talk to schools about what it is they need and want. And we would really, really encourage you to tell us. That's the significant outcome, I suppose, for us of these 3 weeks. So we've been very busy. We haven't been sitting on our hands and doing nothing for 20 months. We've been working with the voluntary and community sector. We work with every child in Sheffield has a social worker. We work with the virtual school. We've worked a lot with our arts and cultural partners. But now is the time to start working with schools. And some of you will know nothing about Create Sheffield. Some of you will know lots. But if it's okay with you, I'm going to assume no knowledge. If you have questions as I'm talking, please pop them into the chat and I'll answer them after the presentation. So we work in partnership and we lead this strategic movement across Sheffield. As I say, it's not just us doing all the work. We want to try and get as many different people and organisations involved as possible. And we work with the full range. So it's not just school age, it's 0 to 24. So these are our 4 priorities. We organise things. So one of the things, I've been in Sheffield since 1997, I think. It's quite a long time. The same thing has been said ever since I arrived in the city, which is, I don't know what's going on. How do I find out what's going on? So that's one of the things that we're trying to do. We're trying to organise what's going on. We're trying to make it easier for people to find things, find out what's going on, and to bring some kind of coherence to that. We then also want to tell people about the fantastic stuff that's happening. There is amazing practice in this city, but it gets hidden. And actually, I think one of the ways that we change people's hearts and minds is by talking about the fantastic work that we're doing. And so that's one of the things that we do. We try and shout about the fantastic work that's happening in the city. And we try to be as research informed as possible, whether that's research on the ground within schools or working across the whole city. So at the moment, we're doing a piece of basic data research, which is around which schools in Sheffield engage with arts and culture, how do they engage with arts and culture. It's the 2nd year we've done it. Dana's going to put the link into the chat. We've only had 17 schools who've replied this year. Last year we had a better reply. And what's significant about it is that it will give us a picture of what was happening with arts and culture in schools before the pandemic. And if people reply, it will give us an answer to the question, what's the state of play post-pandemic, or we're still in pandemic, aren't we? But after this period of time, what's the state of play? So that feels like a really important piece of research, because what that allows us to do is to work out where the gaps are, work out where the problems are, and then for us to fundraise to help fill those gaps and enhance the offer in the city. So our job is to gather and collate, find the problems and try to help solve the problems. Clearly, we won't be the people going out and delivering the problems. So it means that we find a problem, identify a potential solution, and then who might come together to help deliver that potential solution, and how might we fund it. So I should probably just pause and think about, why does it matter? Why do we just not let it all go? Well, the answer is, it really does matter, particularly for children and young people, because it offers them really beautiful, memorable learning experiences. Yeah, begin to engage with arts and culture, and it's arts, culture and creativity. Creativity in the classroom, as well as the opportunity to be an audience member, or to play in a band, or to be in a show, or to go visit a museum. All of those things make learning memorable. The research also shows that engaging with arts and culture and creativity improves educational attainment across the curriculum. It's not a bad reason to stick it in. And as we start thinking about the fact that our education system is preparing children for life and for working in the future, it really develops their skills for future jobs. Jobs are changing the whole time. We have no idea what jobs these young people who are in school now will be going to, but they need the skills that are developed through creativity in order to be able to even begin to tackle something creatively and to build their resilience and to work as teams in the future. As we know from during the pandemic, many people turned to arts, culture and creativity during the pandemic. It really helps our mental health and well-being. and it develops transferable life and work skills. For young people who have special educational needs, very often it provides routes to success for them that they might not otherwise find in the classroom. And for all disadvantaged students, it levels the playing fields. It promotes community engagement and cohesion. I think you can maybe, through some of the things that have happened during the pandemic, you might have examples of ways in which communities have come together through pictures in their windows or rainbows on the floor or dance opportunities at a distance. There are different ways that we can begin to feel more like a community when we engage with the arts. And fundamentally, it also makes learning fun. Now, one of the reasons that lots of people have said to me, oh, well, we don't bring it into schools because it costs too much money. Yes. And we have some potential solutions to that in our third week. It's one of the things that we'll be talking about. But I want to just give you, I hope, a slightly hopeful picture around potential funding and part of the reason why this is a really good time to get involved with arts and culture and education. So we are funded by IVE, and IVE are the bridge organisation for Yorkshire and the Humber. Bridge organisation for the Arts Council in Yorkshire and the Humber. And that basically means that what we do in Sheffield in terms of being that dating agency and connecting people up, they're kind of doing the same thing for the whole of Yorkshire and the Humber, but they're doing it through agencies like Create Sheffield. So they've given us money to trial and test the creative partnership model in the city until September 22. And their money has been matched. Some of the money has come from Learn Sheffield. We're embedded within the Learn Sheffield subscription, for which we are very grateful. And it's a fantastic connection that we have. And then we have a number of other generous funders who've just given us a little bit of money, and all of that has come together so that we've got this partnership investment money through to September 22. Arts Council England, for those of you that don't know, the reason why they're important is that they distribute the national funds for the arts in this country, millions of pounds. And they also distribute a large percentage of the National Lottery funds for arts and culture. And they don't just hand out money, they have a particular ambition for that money. And until now, the ambition for the money has really been to do with quite traditional arts and culture. And they have just delivered a new programme. So for the next 10 years, it's called Let's Create. And it is a fundamental change to the way that funding is going to happen for arts and culture in this country. They want money to come back to communities. They want money to go back into creativity. There's a line in their programme that's around teaching for creativity. They want children and young people to have as many different opportunities as possible. So there are, whereas in the past they would only fund arts organisations, it now looks like they might fund partnerships. And that in itself is quite interesting. The possibility of groups of schools and arts organisations coming together to raise money for arts activities is there in a way that I think even 2 years ago wasn't there. So that's exciting. And they matter. Well, maybe I've said why the Arts Council matter. They matter because they're giving direction, and they also have some really clear outcomes they want to meet. So they're really interested in how the arts are going to engage with the climate crisis, and they're really interested in how the arts can get to more diverse people, more diverse children and young people. They're really, you know, the arts is not a diverse profession, and they really want to change that. And clearly the obvious way to change that is by working more with children and young people and at community level. Just so that you understand, when arts and cultural organisations come into your school, or individual artists come into your school, some of them will be funded to do that. Some of them won't. So there is something called an NPO, that's called a National Portfolio Organisation, and there are 10 of those in Sheffield. So there are 10 organisations in Sheffield, like Sheffield Theatres and Sheffield Museums, who receive money, and they get told that they can have money for a 3-year period. and that money means that they can subsidise their offer to you. So if you were going to work with Sheffield Theatres, for example, they might offer you a 3-term programme with them, but they won't charge you for every minute of that 3-term programme because some of that will be funded. So you might make a nominal £500 payment, or I don't know how much their offerings cost, but it's not as much as it's actually worth. So that's how they manage to offer you that kind of thing. But there are other organisations or individual artists who will apply for funding for a specific project, and then they might be able to come to you subsidised, or an artist you might want to work with might just need paying in the same way as any other professional that you need you want to bring in. So it's worth just checking out whether somebody's funded or not when you talk to them and engage them. So the context, which I'm sure I don't have to tell you, but I'll just outline it, is that 10 years ago, creative partnerships stopped. And for those of you that were involved in creative partnerships, it was an opportunity for creative learning to be embedded through curriculum. It was really, really well funded as well. And then the coalition government came in, and their austerity recovery programme included cuts across the public sector. And that meant cuts for both the arts and the education sector and the voluntary and community sectors. So we've had 10 years worth of cuts, and what that has meant is that if an arts and cultural organisation has survived, they've survived at bare bones level. So when I first came to Sheffield, I arrived to work at Sheffield Theatres. There were 17 of us in the education department. There are now somewhere around 3 people in that education department. And they, rather than having to work just across Sheffield, they now have to work across the Sheffield city region. So, and that, that's our best funded arts organisation in the city. So everything has been pared down. And what that means is there's just much less on offer. And the impact of that over 10 years can be shown just in a really basic thing like the take-up of arts GCSEs. So there's been a 37% drop in the take-up of arts GCSEs in a 10-year period. On top of that, as you know, there have been curriculum restrictions, which are maybe easing a little bit, and the substantive cuts within the youth sector and in out-of-school learning have meant that for young people, even if they don't get the arts or any kind of connection at school or at home, sometimes through a youth club, something like that, that might have worked for them. But there has been such a lot of cuts within the youth work sector and the voluntary and community sector that there isn't even a guarantee of that. So for me, that is the reason why Create Sheffield is there, why it exists, and why we really want to try to make a difference. This slide is our homepage on our website. You can begin to see some of what we do and some of what we offer. So on that top line, you see the word partners. We have 57 arts and cultural partners who work with children and young people. They range from Sheffield Theatres, Sheffield Museums, the circuses, a maze lab who do creative science, individual artists who do mosaic workshops, people like Ignite Imaginations, maker spaces. It's a really big range of people, and they're all safeguard trained. They all know about working with schools. So it's if you like, that's our, going back to the dating agency analogy, that's the place where, that's the shop window. And I just want to point out that at the moment our partners are just arts and cultural organisations. We're really interested in partnering with schools too. We know there's fantastic creative practice happening in many schools, and it may well be that we expand our partners into arts and cultural organisations and schools, or maybe we call schools something else. But we're really aware that we've spent 2 years developing our relationships with partners. So there's 57 on the website. There's not enough school on this on the website yet, and that's a lack, and that's the thing we want to change. Next along is the Sheffield Adventures. There's a separate session about Sheffield Adventures on Thursday, but in summary, they are one of the ways that we're trying to look at the city as a learning resource. So different ways that we can do creative and cultural activities and looking at the city as a learning resource. Events, that's where you will have booked for this. It's where we will share CPD and opportunities that are happening. Stories is the way that we share fantastic practice and talk about what's happening. So what can we offer to you? As you would have seen from the website, we can offer you some measure of signposting. So through the website to our partners, and then also to our adventures. We can share creative learning. So we can share fantastic stuff that's happening in your schools, fantastic stuff that's happening elsewhere in the city and potentially outside it for inspiration. We support 31 Sheffield schools at the moment going through their ArtSmart journey. ArtSmart is significant for us because it's an existing framework that works, that's useful, and it may well be that if more schools want to join, that network gets bigger. And we've also been working with special schools. We have a community of practice specifically focused on creativity in special schools, and they've created a virtual exhibition space for all the, a themed exhibition space. And then finally, we try and work in this strategic way. So assessing access, the annual data collection that I mentioned earlier, and this 3-week group of conversations. And the intention behind that group of conversation is we want to know what you all need and want, how we can best work together, what services we can put in place, and then develop and dream a creative strategy that we put forward from January next year. So finally, the vision for 3 years' time. All local cultural education partnerships are different. Sheffield is completely unique in the country. It's the only one that's its own company, and it's the only one that is its own charity. Others are part of organisations or part of their city council. And we need to work out what Sheffield needs. In some locations, all of the schools have come together and they've paid a lump sum every year into a pot, and all of the arts and cultural partners have come together and they've either paid that lump sum or they've said, right, we'll do goods in kind, so we'll do workshops in kind up to that certain amount. And then the whole city have come together with a pot of money that they've then used that pot of money for match funding to make large scale events happen across the city. That's one scale. In other places, they've just gone, right, we're just focused on ArtSmart. We're going to make ArtSmart happen, and we're going to connect up with every single arts organisation in the city through ArtSmart. In other areas, their focus is really different. Their focus is something like community and community development and thinking about how they can build bridges using arts and culture. Sheffield is a different city and has a different set of priorities, and that's our vision, is to find a way to work out what works for everybody. I'm still pressing the wrong button, sorry. So we still think that a level of organisation is going to be needed, and on a really basic level, we have a newsletter. Go to the website, sign up for our newsletter. It's where a lot of information is shared, upcoming opportunities, questions, training offers, that kind of thing. What we really would like on a really simple level is an arts contact in every school, because it eases communication. At the moment, we work with Learn Sheffield. They send stuff to head teachers, and head teachers send things out. We want to find a way to have a head teachers list and an active arts contact list to get the right information out easily for everybody. So when there's an opportunity from, for example, Sheffield Museums, we can just get it out with ease. That's a simple thing. And we want schools and arts and cultural organisations to work together, so that actually everything that comes to market is fit for purpose. Because I think, and it's been really interesting working with Jenny and her team, because we keep talking about these two different sectors. There's a gap between sectors in terms of understanding, and it's really easy for arts organisations to create something that actually doesn't work for schools. It actually isn't what you need. So what we're trying to do is tie people together so what is created really works. We also want to continue sharing fantastic practice and resources, and developing CPD that goes alongside it. We want to continue understanding the strategic level. What is going on in the city? Who isn't getting it? Because we want to fill the gaps. And we want to fill the gaps and create more opportunities. For example, we know that the offer for 0 to 5s in this city isn't great. There's not an awful lot going on. But we need to get the evidence together so that we can then potentially put in a funding application in order to fill that gap. These opportunities, so today and then later on in the rest of the 3 weeks, tell us what else you need or want. What are the questions you have that we could help to answer? This is the rest of the 3 weeks. I'm actually going to skip off from here because I think we'll come back to this at the end, and then I'll take some questions. Are there any questions? That felt like a bit whistle top. It's slightly weird. Any questions?
We had a question from Hannah, Sophie, about where you can find like a list of arts partners, and obviously you can find them on the Create Sheffield website, but is there anywhere else that you would recommend?
So this summer we've been working with the Healthy Activities and Food Fund, and this question came up quite a lot. And there, in terms of safeguarded people who've gone through safeguarding, people who you know can come into your school and you don't need to worry about safeguarding, we've got a list. Ignite Imaginations have got a list, and the Children's University have got a list. I think the thing that I would say is Children's University often their practitioners do kind of one-offs and really good entry level. And Ignite Imaginations, they have a team of artists who they've trained, and they work largely with writing and visual arts. And then we've got a much more diverse group. We've got a really big range of, like a vast range, and you can filter at the top of the website. You can say what age group and I don't know, if you're interested in working outdoors, you can press the working outdoors button and the right artist will come up. Otherwise, it's a bit of a mess really, because Sheffield City Council used to have a list, but it doesn't really have an up-to-date list anymore. And I suppose that's part of what we're trying to do is develop the list that is the tried and trusted list. One of the questions that I would have for schools is, who do you work with who isn't on our list? Because then we could approach them and they could join the list. Because actually, I think only collectively can we pull the bigger and better list together. Does that answer your question? Any other questions? Oh, look, can there be 2 contacts per school? Are art subject to split over 2 different faculties? Yes. You know, I think we're happy for there to be as many different contacts as necessary, and I think specifically if we know that, you know, I don't know, you send this key stage to this person and that key stage to the other person. So Dana, when we ask people for an arts contact, is there room for them to write 2?
If they sign up to our newsletter as individuals, you can put your school in there and what age level that you're most interested in, so that all gets saved on MailChimp.
Okay, great. And then potentially any offers go out to the appropriate age range. Okay, I'm going to keep going up. Lindsay, Sheffield Theatres used to run fantastic free CPD for teachers. Often asking resident or visiting artist directors to run these sessions. Is this something that could be provided for Sheffield teachers again? Yes, it is something that can be provided for Sheffield teachers again. Please ask for it. You know, please, whenever there's a form that we hope that everybody is filling in, which is our getting to know you form. The rationale behind that is that we really need to know who's coming to these sessions, and we want to ask you questions about what you need and want, and we thought that the most straightforward way to do that was with one big form. It's not big, sorry, one small form that won't take you very long, but please fill it in. So the more information you can give. When the first year I ran Create Sheffield, we ran CPD at all levels, and we did that alongside Learn Sheffield, and it was just incredibly complex, and it took us away from our core purpose at Create Sheffield. But if you turn around and you say that's what we need and want, that really helps us, because that means that we can make it happen. And I know that the Sheffield Theatres might not be the people who run it actually, but there are loads of theatre companies, and it might be something that we can run and bring in the different theatre companies.
Sorry, just to add to that, on the 11th of this month at 3:30, we've got a session which is called What Place is There for Drama and Expressive Arts in the Curriculum? And at that session, we've got the Sheffield Theatres are doing a presentation. I believe it's a recorded presentation, but we've got other theatre organisations who will be there speaking live as well. So that would be a really good session to attend if that's something that you're particularly interested in.
And I suppose part of what we're trying to do is to ascertain who's interested and what they're interested in. And then our job is to knit people together, because actually, if we get, I ran arts lead sessions for primary school for a year. And in those arts lead sessions, everyone was either music or visual arts, apart from the one lonely drama person. And so if I knew that there were more primaries who were interested in drama, that would be really easy, because we could pull you all together, and also at secondary level, obviously. I am the arts lead in my school. How do I put forward my email address so information can go straight to me? Dana, what's the best way? Is that through the getting to know you form, or is it through the signing up for the newsletter form?
I did reply newsletter, but yeah, also please sign up the getting to know you form. It's all going to go in the same place. There was a question about ArtsMark a bit further down, Sophie. How do we get support with our ArtsMark journey?
Great, thank you. So ArtsMark, there's two different sorts of support. So because IVE run the Yorkshire and the Humber ArtsMark support, they have they've offered for Sheffield, they've offered termly meetings to bring everybody together. And last year we were part of those sessions, because we wanted to say, oh look, so there's everything to do with Create Sheffield, and then everything to do with ArtsMark. And after a year, we decided, actually, particularly a year in a pandemic, we decided that was a little bit complex, because the messaging was too complicated, because we know that we're all from different organisations, but you don't necessarily, and you don't really care necessarily. So those ArtsMark sessions are running termly, and they're being run on our behalf by IVE. So they are specifically about the nuts and bolts of ArtsMark. And I guess we're there as the support team, because when a Sheffield school wants to work with a particular type of organisation, or wants to understand who the ArtsMark partners are across the city, that's where we can get involved. And so at the moment we're keeping back from that ArtsMark group, but with the intention that it stays and forms as a group of schools who are really interested in arts and cultural learning. So I think once IVE stops supporting people through their ArtsMark journey, our intention is that we continue working with that ArtsMark group. That's quite a long answer. If you want to make sure that we get, in fact, is it Hannah Bowman? Is it Hannah? Yeah. Hannah, if you don't get support already from IVE, we can connect you into that. And if you do already get that support, that's great. And if not, then there's additional support that we can offer. Will there be funding for something similar to the Ignite scheme to enable more young people to attend the theatres? I don't know. I don't know, actually. But it's a... Lindsay, can you tell me a little bit? Because the Ignite scheme still exists. Do you mean across other organisations? Do you want to take your mic off? Oh yes, ideally. Okay. Great idea. Great idea, and it's something that we can potentially fundraise for. Yes, so one of the things that's happening with the Arts Council at the moment is that all organisations who had funding their funding has been paused. So they've got another year. They should be finishing, but they got a natural extension of a year. So in this next year, organisations, and I guess particularly buildings, in the case that we're talking about, will be dreaming up the plans that they're asking the Arts Council to fund. So this is a really good question, because if we could prove why that's important and who it would be important to and how that will increase access, then we can encourage people in arts organisations where there are buildings and potential visitors, we can encourage them to write that into their next plan, if that makes sense. Any other questions? I can't see any.
Can I ask the group, just because it's our first session today, a couple of people have messaged to say they can't access some of the links. Is that everybody that can't access the links in the chat, just so we know for next time to try and fix it? Just a couple of people. Just the weird world of technology. Thank you.
How very annoying.
We will email all the links to you after the session. So
okay, brilliant.
Yeah.
Thanks, Dana. So we were going to quickly, have we got time? Yeah, we were just going to spend 5 minutes in breakout rooms and to think about any particular thoughts for the ways forward, things that you might like, that you might like moving forward, and I guess any other questions. So Dana's going to split you. It's lost somewhere in cyberspace. So what were your thoughts? So we've got a couple of minutes just to share our thoughts or share any questions or any requests. It would be fantastic if you would write them in the chat. Write your thoughts in the chat so that everyone else can see. The group that I was in, it was the most magnificent opportunity for two schools to share performances, but also conversations around money and needing money to take kids to shows, and a continuation of the question around Ignite in the chat. That sense of how do we get kids out to arts and culture if the costs are too high, but then the possibility of maybe actually showing each other, showing young people's work to other young people, and we talked about the possibility of that either being live or recorded. And you may well have had other conversation before I joined you. There are other bits and pieces that I missed. Jenny, what about you? What was your group discussion?
We talked about how John looks like he's in a really cool industrial space, but it's actually just because the asbestos has been taken out of his roof. But we did also talk about the importance of some networks developing, particularly, you know, Hannah was saying about an Art Smart network as a way of starting things up. And, you know, certainly when I started teaching, the local authority you had subject leader groups. There was a consultant for art, there was a consultant for science. They'd come out and they'd support you, and you know, getting to that again, I think we said would be something that would be really valuable.
Great, fantastic. As Lindsay said, if we can share performances by our students, would there be an opportunity for funds to cover transport, etc.? So interesting, the number of cultural education partnerships where funding for transport is the main focus. You know, you are not alone across England. It's all about buses.
I think the sort of thing that you're saying, Lindsay, you know, we're looking really, aren't we, at the moment about what is the role going to be of Create Sheffield going forward, you know? So if it's going to be around how we can make performances work and the opportunity to go to performances, then share that with us and let us know that that's something that you think is a really valuable role for Create Sheffield, because we need to know that. And anyone else has got that sort of same idea.
Any networks for Arts Lead in Sheffield? Yes, there will be from January. There was, and then the pandemic hit. There will be. Networking would be great, but networking which understands the school context and what we need, and in return what we can offer. Yes.
Definitely understand your school context, Elizabeth, being just up down the road from you. Yeah, totally get you. So yeah, I completely understand where you're coming from there. And I think it's important that whatever networks we're setting up, that they've got, you know, a good spread of different people from different schools and different backgrounds. We had a conversation about primary and secondary as well, and some of the difficulties. You know, if you go into a session and it's all primary and you're secondary, it can seem, you know, not very useful, but
yeah.
Yes, we are. Yes.
And Claire's mentioned we need help with curriculum planning for non-specialists to deliver, especially in art. I think there's loads that we can do in terms of CPD. That feels we've got some really rich connections through with Sheffield Hallam, and you know, the opportunity to run CPD in their location. There's lots of possibility. Just please go and talk to your colleagues and find out what people want, and you know, we've got 3 weeks to gather as much information as possible, so please be our champions. Go and pass the word around. Jenny, do you want to share your screen and just talk us through the last bits?
Okay, I'll just present it. Oh no, it's not playing. Right, I'm just going to do it like this. Right. Okay, well, thank you very much, everybody, for coming. Like we said at the beginning, this is the first of these sessions that we've done. And it's been really good to hear your feedback. We would really like it now, if you wouldn't mind, please, filling in our getting to know you form. Dana's going to be putting the link hopefully in the chat right now. If it doesn't work for you, we'll send it out as well. I know we hate filling out forms and it's a bit of a pain, but it's really important that we get all of those things that you've been talking to us about, and any other ideas that you have, you get them across to us, so that we have this opportunity as an organisation to help you and the city to bring these things together. So yeah, that's the main thing we'd really like you to do right now. Then we'd like you really to attend some more sessions, please, so that you get to hear a bit more about what's going on. We've spent a long time putting together what looks like a really exciting programme. So this week we've got 2 sessions coming up on Thursday. Thursday morning we've got a fantastic session which has got panel discussion between 2 really leading experts in arts education, one of whom has written this book, which, if you've not, and she's written one on drawing as well. She's called Paula Briggs. I love this book. It's just got loads of really great ideas in it. So that's Paula Briggs, and she's also going to be joined by Susan Coles, both of whom have spent a long time working in arts education. We're talking about some of the things that they've done, why it matters. It'd be great to come along if you're an arts lead, give you a lot of ammunition to go back to your SLT with about, why it matters and why it's something that you should be investing in right now. Then that same after school that day, we've got the introduction to Sheffield Adventures that Sophie talked about. I love the Sheffield Adventures. I kind of totally didn't know anything about them. Then I came across them and I thought there's loads of mileage here. There's loads of things we can do with this. So have a look at them, come along to that session and let us know what you think. They're just the beginning at the moment, but I think there's a long way we can go with those to make our curriculum really, really meaningful to where the children are. So that's week 1. Next week, in quite the right order. Next week, we've got 6 sessions, and all of these sessions are about inspiring you with stories of the things that other schools and other arts partners have already done, successful projects that's already happened. So we've got the one on drama and expressive arts I've mentioned already. We've got one on performances, build a community. So we've got the Sheffield Music Hub and Locality C talking about some of the big events that they've put on together, bringing different schools together, sometimes virtually. Then we've got a session on active health and well-being, because one way you can get some funding to help your arts mark is using your PE sports premium. So the circus skills through the Green Top is one way that you might be able to do that. So and then also mental well-being as well. Another session on creativity in the early years. We've got 50 things talking at that, and also Polly Ives talking about a project that she's done here at Beck, actually. A session on cultural diversity, inclusion, identity, which will include Handsworth Grange talking about something that they've done with an artist, and also the museums talking about their new workshops that they're putting together. And finally, we've got a session on supporting children with SEN, where we've got special school partners talking about some of the projects that they've been involved in. So that's week 2. They're all 45 minutes, so they're relatively short, snappy. Then the final week, we've got 3 sessions, and the idea here is that all those things that we've heard about, we want to connect all those links up and make them last. So we've got a session on the school curriculum. So, and how you use arts. Is it something that's just a nice add-on that children might get if they're lucky, or is it something that's completely embedded in what you do, so every child gets an entitlement to it? And how do we make those things balance and make them work? Really hoping that we might have Mary Myatt to talk at that, and just fingers crossed, I'm finding out today. And then we've got a session on the 21st, which is about tips for working with arts partners, and vice versa for working with schools if you're an arts partner, because it can be challenging. We can talk different languages. This session will also have some details about where to find funding. So some of it is working out some of the practicalities. And then the very last session, I would like everyone to attend who's been to everything, if you possibly can. Great for an arts lead or an SLT in a school. It's an opportunity to evaluate where you are at the moment with your arts provision, and for you to make a plan as to what you want to do in the future. So they're the sessions that are coming up. Please get in contact if you've got any questions or anything you'd like to share with us. We're on Twitter, Create Chef. That's our website. You can email me, Amy or Becky through the education email, or you can email any of us through the contact us email address. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Jenny. Thanks all for coming. We hope to see you at another session in the not too distant future.